That was by the
Let's do moral philosophy.
Okay, we do moral philosophy. All right. So, do you want to argue? So, like, what aspect of it? Like, you want to argue like moral ontology or just normative ethics? Or like what?
You're a vegan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll be anti-vegan.
Okay. Well, that's
sure.
Fine. Okay.
So I'll play as a. See.
I'll play as what you are.
I'll have the neutral moral stance because society believes that what I'm doing is normal. So I will just put the onus onto you to kind of break the mold, if that's all right. And I'd like you to establish a premise here. Like what are we trying to like accomplish, right? Like.
Oh well, in that case, I just move you to position that the animal holocaust is a morally negative act instead of a morally neutral act.
Morally negative? Okay.
Yeah.
Morally.
So
morally negative in what aspect?
Well, probably. So I would do the proof by contradiction. So like so either I would have you accept that you would accept the human, for that context, and if you reject it, I would just simply say then your position would be contradictory, right? And then or if you would accept the premise, right, if that humans would be okay in the animal context, then all I could really use would just
so why is this is a little bit off topic, but why is an inconsistent moral system immoral?
So I wouldn't say inconsistent moral system is immoral necessarily, but in the problem with a
I don't want to stop you there, but it sounds like you don't really have an argument then, right? Because you just said earlier we're trying to prove it's immoral. So if you can't say it's immoral using that contradiction system, then I don't feel like that's a valid attack.
Well, if you show that, if you value logical consistency, right, and then once you
what if I don't, right? What if I don't? Can you hold on? Can you prove that it's kind of like the whole law of explosion thing, right? People use the law of explosion for moral philosophy, but it doesn't inherently mean that the moral system is immoral, right? You can have a inconsistent moral system that's really good, right? So.
Well, I think by definition, an inconsistent moral system would justify anything based on the principle of inconsistency, all right?
Why?
Well, if I have a moral system, whatever principle position it is, but then I say it's inconsistent, I can say, well, Monday it's okay to kill you or kill or murder in general, and then Tuesday it's not, just on the principle of inconsistency.
Well, you could still be consistent and immoral, right? Hitler, you could say like Hitler was consistent, right?
Oh my god!
But I wouldn't say that Hitler would be immoral in his own moral system, though.
Okay, so what? Now we have a new thing, right? Now we have in his moral system. So what moral system are we determining these things with?
Well, the issue is that if like for your specific context, when you said it's morally neutral, right? Okay. If I take you off position, if you care about logical consistency, as again, if you don't, that goes into something different. I can't say that it's immoral necessarily from like an objective standpoint. But I'm saying in your system, you understand what I'm saying? So
I understand what you're saying, but it sounds like it's not a very powerful argument. I mean, it's very easy just to say like I could literally just grandstand a consistent position that you find absurd, but you can't really prove or say it's immoral because on an individual. Maybe you have like a societal argument or something. Maybe something more measurable, or I don't know. Something.
The problem is that when you're arguing prescriptive ethics, right? The issue is that you don't have a base to appeal right or wrong to. Like you just have to argue either a principle of explosion or some type of like reductio to absurdum, or try to convince them of a totally different position. I can't say you're rationally like you're wrong. I mean, if we can argue descriptive, right? I mean, you can make an argument that like if your goal is for something, right? Let's say your goal is the egoist, and like you only care about your self-interest, right?
Okay.
And your survival or whatever. Then I can argue veganism in terms of a health argument, then, right? So like it just depends on the construction of your moral system.
Okay. I think my moral system is just our current day society is fine. Whatever our current day society's got going on. Yeah. We'll just use American. Yeah.
So let me be clear. So you're saying that your moral prescriptions are basically with everyone else's, like the universal value sets that we have in this society?
Sure, American society. Go for it.
Okay. So we can just start with the idea of the right to life, right?
Cool.
So I would argue, so why won't you give animals the right to life?
Well, we do in some cases, right? It depends on their values or their connections. So it's like, you got a pet, got a secondhand connection to a human, blah, blah, blah. They have value. People value, in our society, they value certain animals because obviously we have connections to them or we sympathize with them more. But the problem is that we make voluntary values of all humans in most humans, right? I mean, I'm not gonna use absolute voluntary values. I think actually humans can't control that they care about other humans.
When I mean voluntary, I'm not talking about an autonomous choice. I mean in the social contract sense. So like social contracts are formed technically by voluntary actions. So
okay, so you're saying like by law or something?
No. By virtue of forming, like when you form society, right? I mean, the idea, the basis of how social contract works, like John Locke talked about this a lot, is that basically in the state of nature, humans will make voluntary agreements, and that's how like a society arise, right? So like that's the basis of a society, and then you have developments of different societies from there. So it's not like an active choice necessarily. It's just a consequence of trying to survive.
So
right?
Okay, so the social contract is made by humans to support human life, right?
To support self-interest.
Okay, so humans are basically creating these for their interests, blah blah blah. So if humans aren't interested in animals, why is it immoral?
So the issue is, if you're saying immoral, you're talking prescriptive. This is a descriptive thing.
Okay, so we're not talking about morals anymore?
Well, the idea is you ask if you adopt the values of society, right? And then you said, why would it be immoral? So I would so I would say the right to life.
Hold on. Peep was laughing over you, bro. What'd you say?
So I'll say the right to life for animals, right? So then I would ask, why wouldn't you give it to humans, right? The whole thing about social contract, I was just showing you that the development of how social contracts work, like in description.
I mean, it works in my favor a little bit, but sure. Like, where are you going with it then? Let's build off of that because yeah.
Wait, so I mean, what exactly are you asking though? Like, the whole point of the social contract, I was telling you I was just giving you an example of how they develop. Are you saying that you're making a prescriptive like axiom?
Sure, we can use the social contract. That's fine. You want to use the social contract?
Well,
sure.
Okay, well, I would just say that if the social contract wanted to,
it's the American social contract, by the way, but whatever.
Okay, I mean that's fine. So, the American social contract, right?
Okay.
Would you? So a couple hundred years back, the American social contract was okay with slavery. Would you accept that slavery would be okay just because the American social contract said it was okay?
Is that our current social contract?
It's not, but I'll give you an
example. Okay, well, I only care about the current social contract. I don't care about that one.
I mean, the issue is that
do I have to be okay with every American social contract? I don't think that was part of my premise. I only said our social contract, which I was referring to present, right? Today's social contract. You got to prove why today's social contract is immoral.
Okay, but the problem when you say prove that it's immoral is that when you're saying prove it's immoral, you're proving it towards something, right?
Sure.
So like if I say something is wrong, I'm saying it's wrong relative to something else. But if you don't hold that something else, how can I show you that your system of morality is wrong?
Okay, so how about this? So if you want to say, why are we killing animals, but not a bunch of humans, right? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it just goes into the social contract, right? The social contract is built for the interest and, safety of humans, and obviously animals aren't on there. So it's like, well, let's just go over, the definition of moral, right? You want to?
Yeah.
Okay, it's basically like what's a misbehavior in a society. That's pretty much the definition.
But here's the problem, though, right? If if I'm arguing something in your system that's immoral, I would have to appeal to the social contract to evaluate whether it's moral or not. I can't evaluate whether it's immoral or moral outside of that social contract if that's what you hold. Like
Well,
because it would be appealing to an objective source.
basically, all I'm saying is that the American social contract today is just the basis of all my morals. That's all I'm saying, right? And I like I'm saying is like, okay, you could say slavery was wrong because by today's morals, right, we see that incriminating humans of different color is not beneficial to the idea that all humans deserve to be free, right? That's basically the idea. So it's like, and animals don't fall under anything that I would consider immoral in this case.
I mean, I would, in terms of the current American social contract, right? I mean, the issue is that some of the aspects. So like I'll give you examples. So like the factory farming, right?
Cool. Yep.
We can talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now the empirical data I don't really know much on, but definitely I know a lot. Like you can, like there's some things that are kind of not clear on the position of the social contract, right? Because obviously, as you know, just because something is going on in the society doesn't mean it's actually considered moral throughout everybody, right?
Okay.
So in terms of factory farming, I mean, I guess we can try to pull up empirical statistics on like how Americans feel about it, but in essence, like if it were to say that the social contract was against factory farming,
what if I argued that those votes or opinions are superficial?
In what way would it be superficial?
I think they're superficial because I've made this argument a few times, but basically, so you give someone a video, right? Say you show them a video of someone just fucking tasing a cow and killing it or something, or chopping its fucking head off or torturing it to get meat. And then say they say, well, I was fucked up, I'm not going to eat meat for a while. And then they kind of get over it, right? And it happens with pretty much just about everyone that really gets to know. I mean, like, obviously there's the small percentage of vegans that didn't get over it. But for the most part, most people that watch these things or are aware of these things just say, well, I don't care. And it's because they honestly do not actually value these animals as much as they're acting like they do. And that's just a problem with people, right? People are very superficial to keep their image, right? Yeah.
Because that's really an issue with people's like axioms, right? I mean, think about it, you're indoctrinated in a certain culture, right? And that you're born within that culture. A lot of these ideas that are against your culture are going to just be rejected on just by virtue of what you experience is so intuitional, right? Like if someone who's grown up eating meat all their life, I assume it'd be really hard for them to stop, assuming that it was part of how they grew up, right? I mean, yeah. So
they don't think it's immoral.
Well, yeah, exactly.
So it's superficial.
It's not superficial though, because when you say what you said, it was that empirical statistics of that would be superficial, and I don't think it would necessarily be superficial.
No, I'm just saying that their statements about it are superficial. So so for instance, say like your empirical data is basically like them getting interviewed, right? Like they maybe like a questionnaire, like, hey, what do you think about animals getting raped for food, right? Like, so like if you gave that to like your grandma or something, she's gonna be like, fuck, that's terrible. No, I don't like animals getting raped for food. That's bad. And then she'll eat a steak that same night. Like it's just dumb. it's completely superficial.
Okay, but that's kind of like a different thing than like the fact. So like if I say factoring, if I take a poll, right?
Can I take a piss real quick? I'm sorry. think about your thing. Yeah.
Dude, you need to pin him on one thing and just keep him on that. So I'd go back to pretty much to the consistency thing. So I'd pretty much go back to the consistency thing and just go a bit further into the sort of principle of explosion and just pin him on that a bit more, because he's sort of gone in several different directions.
The issue with the principle of explosion, because I brought that up earlier, and then he changed his moral prescriptions to the American social contract. And so basically, we're hashing out like the pragmatics there.
Yeah. But if he says he doesn't believe in consistency, then there's no reason for him to even be consistent with the American social contract.
Yeah, I don't know if he was still holding on the inconsistency thing. I think he kind of I thought he rejected that with his whole other moral system that he gave. But I guess I'll ask.
Yeah. Just pin him on the principle of explosion. Make sure he goes consistent. Then you can go towards the American social contract. And some of the other arguments that he's making at the moment, it's more the pragmatic of why people will, or how people will view something, but then they won't change their. It's more of a
the
cognitive dissonance.
The issue that he's making, he's kind of talking about something different. So, like, if I can ask a bunch of people, do you think factory farming is wrong? Is not asking whether you want to eat meat still, right? It's like so that's the issue. I think he's kind of like misinterpreting there. But I guess I'll just mention that when he comes back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more of a disconnection thing rather than a principally moral thing.
Hi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Seth, so the issue I was saying before you left was that it's a different question, right? To ask, do you think factory farming is wrong? Than to ask, do you think eating meat is wrong, right? So what we can do is that we can poll and have their just emotional feelings on how they feel about factory farming. And if the social contract that thinks that it's wrong, then anything logically deriving from factory farming shouldn't be allowed, right?
Okay, so yeah, so the thing about American culture is that we obviously value the right to vote, blah blah blah. Like if most people don't want something, it's not going to happen. Like in this case, I guess you can maybe establish that most people think eating meat is wrong, right? Is that where you're going with that?
No. Well, I want to be clear. Factory farming, I wouldn't equivocate with eating meat.
Okay.
So if I pose,
let me just ask, where are you going with that then? If factory farming is right or wrong, like where are you going?
Well, it's a social contract, therefore it says that factory farming is wrong.
Not necessarily. The social contract also says that you're allowed to like veto or vote things out too. So it's like.
Well, I'm talking about a poll, right? So like a poll of the feelings on factory farming.
Okay, so if they don't want it or they truly didn't want it, then yeah, they get rid of it.
If it's a consensus, right, then you can get rid of it on virtue of the social contract. And then anything derived from factory farming would then be abolished. I mean, it's just from a principle of just logical deduction.
Yeah. It's mainly the torturing like factory farming though. It's not like if you ask someone like, hey, do you think a cow being like on a small ranch or like in an enclosed space is super bad and they should never happen and we shouldn't eat meat because of this, they'll probably say no, right? It's mainly just when you show them like these murder videos or something that they're kind of going down that route.
Yeah, we're speaking primarily like the current implementation.
Right, the really bad ones. Yeah. The really
so in essence, because the issue is like when you're talking about a social contract, that you have to in essence either one of two things, right? One of the two things is that you either have to show that they have to give an emotional response to it that it's wrong, right? That they feel it's wrong.
Okay.
Or you have to logically convince them that in their self-interest that they should be vegan, right? Now, I can do that argument with you if you like, that in your self-interest, because if the social contract is just an aggregation of self-interest, right? Okay. I can just make a self-interested argument for you to be vegan.
Well, that's the problem with the definition of moral, right? Is that moral is basically just those two things you just listed. So it's like we have to argue what you just listed. So I mean, like we'd have to argue the self-interest of the community, and then we'd have to argue what I believe.
I would say self-interest because in the other moral systems, so like if I was something like a principled person who was like human rights, and arguing self-interest isn't really like necessary there, right? You would just argue on the in principle of human rights.
Well, no, I mean everything is really a self-interest, right? You as an individual value like other people, right? That's your self-interest to help those people. That's what I meant by that. I didn't mean like they're not trying to help people or someone other than themselves. That's not what I was implying. I'm sorry if I misworded that.
No, you're good. Because I just wanted to make a distinction, like descriptively, like describing like how humans really form their more like presuppositions, and then like prescript, like there are moral systems where people literally say like prescriptively, normatively speaking, my preferences are good, or like whatever like the self-interest can
however they determine what good means.
Whatever weird axiom or whatever weird definition they determine good, but they say no, actually they say good is just my preferences, like it's kind of a tautological thing.
Okay.
Like they'll just really repeat. Yeah, it's like my preferences. It's a circular thing. My preferences are good. Preferences, that type of shit.
Well, I mean,
but
like
anyways,
moral is just such a the way moral is constructed as a word is just like it's bound to be circular eventually because like everything is just like a self value. Yeah.
The problem is that when you're speaking anything in morals and even constructing a moral system, you have to have just a base ought, right? And you just have to, and it's good at the base just be an axiom, I want humans. I just like human rights. I just like my own interests. So yeah.
Okay.
So in essence, for you, right? You're appealing the social contract, right? I would argue. So like so, we down the road is having a poll to where most people would find this factory farming or some variation of eating meat immoral, whatever it's practiced or something like that, and then or I would have to argue out of self-interest for you to go personally vegan.
Okay. Would you like to do both, or would you like to do one or the other? Do you want to choose a lane, or?
I mean, the empirical. Well, I mean, I don't know if I can find any empirical statements. So I mean, I don't know if that would even.
We can, if you want, you can yield the society one, and we can go to me as an individual. If that's what you want.
Yeah, we can do that. So
cool.
I can. So out of your self-interest, right? So like, what is the thing that you interest the most of your life?
You know what? I can't really answer that question clearly. It's a strange question. What do you value, right? Like I don't know. It's weird.
Well, can I ask you this, right?
Okay.
Would you want to live the longest you can?
No.
With a reasonable quality of life?
No.
Okay, so can I? Okay, do you care about being healthy? Can I ask you?
No.
What do you care about?
I know this is weird because like maybe it's a depression thing. Who really fucking knows? But I definitely don't value living that long. I really don't want to live like until like I'm fucking like 90 years old. I would be fine just living until like 25 through 30, like my physical prime, and I'm good going down.
I mean, to be honest, I agree with you in terms of like I don't really give a fuck about living like that.
Yeah.
But like you got to give me something.
Hey man, you're the one trying to convince me. All right.
Okay, fine. Let me do this. All right. So I will say this. Okay. Do you care individually? Right. Do you care about happiness for sentient beings, or you don't care about something like give me like something that I can just have a base in arguing with you about.
Well, I'm kind of in it to win it here, unfortunately. But maybe I toss it like. And that's the problem. Like, that's why I was like, oh, maybe we should argue societal. Like, I think, Jose in here, I actually told him the same thing. It's like, if you're debating someone about their individual beliefs, they can really grandstand fucking anything. And you can't really convince them that they're being individually immoral. It's just dumb. And even Destiny, whenever you debate, like, ask yourself, he's like, well, I could just fucking say I don't care. I can just be a machine or blah, 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 right? If you have something to, like, just push me into having to argue that way, then sure, but otherwise
So can I give you this argument real quick, right? So
okay,
I'll give you, instead of arguing prescriptive, I'll give you a descriptive argument for why I think veganism will eventually come, right? Is that something that you would accept? So like if I could show logically that it's a high possibility that veganism will happen, then would you like adopt a position just on virtue that's gonna happen?
Like I know, is veganism on the rise percentage wise, or is it on a decline? I don't know if there's any. Is there any evidence?
Is veganism on the rise or decline? Honestly, I don't know.
Percentage. Let's say like veganism, vegans compared to world population percentage, like over the years. Maybe there's like a chart or.
Yeah, let me check it out real quick.
Cool. I'll get some water real quick then.
All right, cool. Dr. Grego, what is that? What did you leak?
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
What's up, bro?
What up? Is that Seth?
That is Seth.
Nice, dude. What are you guys talking about?
Just veganism, and we were just kind of doing like a kind of mock debate-ish. Not really. We're just like it's really more just me trying to convince him like the veganism and shit.
Cool, man.
I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not.
What's he going? I mean, I had a chat with him a little while back. I was just I wanted to know what he valued. I think it was something along the lines of like social contracts / like also personal preference, but social contracts was like more important, or like value to society. I don't know. It was kind of weird. We were kind of all over the place.
His prescriptives are kind of like he's not like there's not really a strong prescriptive there. So I'm giving him a descriptive argument to why veganism will eventually arise, and I'm gonna see if he accepts it or not. And if he accepts it, then he would just go vegan on the virtue that's gonna happen. It's just going to happen. Like it's something that's unavoidable. Hopefully you can agree to that. I don't know. We'll see.
Cool, man. Well, I'll be listening in for a little while I get some work done.
All right, Brody.
All right, I'm back. Hello.
Okay, cool.
So, what up, Seth?
Hi.
How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing all right, man.
So here's what would be my descriptive argument, right?
Okay.
So I would say that just in the same way. So a lot of what we consider right or wrong really doesn't matter in most cases in terms of like how society's gonna act. Society's gonna act in the way that's convenient for them, right? So I'll give you an example.
That's how humans are, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So slavery back when it was a current mode of production in the South, right? I mean, whatever they felt about it, they felt that was the strongest economic way of just producing shit, right? Until you have the North American capitalists, in fucking, like New York and shit.
We eventually learned that slavery was not the most beneficial financially.
Was not the most beneficial. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So I would argue that as society progresses, right, and as technology becomes more advanced and economics becomes more advanced, that eventually you can open up a market, right, where that can I would say that would not only pass the meat industry in efficiency but also in taste, to have vegan products become the like norm for eating, right? And I would just so I would say just how like the capitalist mode of production was just better than the slave mode of production. I would say that once vegan food becomes not only at the taste criteria, but also made at the efficiency it is, like the way the clean meat is kind of being researched and developed right now, I would say that it would, benefits wise, it would totally be better to me in terms of global warming. It would be better in terms of the whole factory farming and killing animals thing. And economically, I think, and I'm not sure about this exactly because this really depends on the market form. So, I'm not going to make a statement outright, but it would be more efficient than, because the meat industry actually loses a lot of money. And I'll pull up the statistics on that if you want me to.
Cool.
So I feel like eventually speaking, as society becomes more efficient, veganism should outplace, or vegan food should outplace meat. Do you get, how do you feel about that?
Let's go over the economics of meat eating for one. For one, the society is devolving in that category. The more advanced, lush, and luxurious our life becomes, the more we indulge in these nasty things that are bad for us unnecessarily. So, for instance, like more drugs, more meat, right? A lot of these things, right?
One sec. I would argue that meat is an inferior good and not a normal good. So an inferior good would be something along the lines of, as income increases, the consumption of this good goes down. Like if you look at, as people, I mean, because like you look at McDonald's, Wendy's, all this other shit, like a bunch of poor people buy that stuff, right? But as people get older, not older, as people get more money, my bad. People get more money, it seems that they don't really buy from these places anymore. Now you could argue that meat might not go down completely, or the amount that goes down isn't super significant, but
I think that's more of an ego thing. I think people, when they have more money, they get sort of like in their head, and they think that McDonald's or something is just beneath them at that point, and that it's like beneath their pay grade or maturity to kind of eat from an establishment like that, right? I think they want to like rather eat a steak that's really expensive or some shit that they make on their own, like eventually, right? That'd make more sense. And like I said, the more we modernize, the more meat consumption goes up, because it used to be meat was more of a luxury item, like back in the day.
That is true. It used to be like that.
And now it's like worse, like now that we have more money. So I don't think economics was ever like the problem with meat. I think it was just people just couldn't fucking afford it, so they just didn't want it. But now that it's kind of like it's like post-scarcity bullshit, pretty much. Like people just have so much going around that it's not a problem to obtain. I don't know if you want to go into that. It's not really a big. Your main point was more so on lab meat. I mean, we could like devolve into that, but it's not really that important. But up to you. Do you want to go down there or?
Well, I have. Hold on, I'm on this paper right now. So it's saying that. Oh, let me, because I'm doing some computer.
No problem.
I'll see if I can find a way to link this shit. But I mean, I guess it's not that important, anyways. But it's basically talking about how, like, beef and pork are. This is old as shit though. But it's basically talking about how it's an inferior good. But anyways, it's irrelevant. The main point is this, right? That the lab meat will eventually take over meat due to the inefficiencies of meat production. Okay.
So what's the point with that? Like, do I have to go vegan because of that? Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, I would say that it's something that's inevitable. So it would be something like I would say it'd be irrational not to adopt the position though. Like it's like have you heard the scientific socialist argument like that Marx says? It's kind of in that way. Like some people are communist just on the virtue that's going to happen.
Okay. So wait, did you say that they're communist because it's on the verge of happening, or?
Wait. Say again.
Did you say they're on the verge of becoming communist? Is that what you said?
There are communists who have adopted a position based on Marx's analysis more than like a prescriptive thing.
Well, here's the thing about the whole lab meat thing. If meat is impossible for me to obtain from the store or something, then yeah, I'll go vegan, right? Especially if there's like lab-grown meats or something. But if both lab-grown meat and normal meat is available, I'm not necessarily going to not buy normal meat. Is that the question? Maybe I'm not understanding.
But well, the idea is that I don't even think it would make it to the shelf over time. Like,
if it's impossible for me to obtain normally, I'm not going to go out of my way. I'm a very lazy person, right? That's the problem. Like, I'm not gonna fucking go to the black market to buy a steak or something. Like, you know, like I don't even think that has anything to do with morals, though, right? I think it's just like.
This is purely descriptive. Argument.
Yeah, no problem.
Not a moral one.
Yeah.
So the idea is that producers, right? I mean, as a supplier in the meat market, if I can see that I can have more efficient production and make more money as in terms of lab meat, like the rational thing to you to do is switch, which businessmen are in the business of rationality since they want to make profit.
Like I said, like if they're only putting lab-grown meat on the shelf, like it's not going to turn me vegan, but I would technically be eating vegan, like if that's what's going on, I guess.
Well, honestly, that's really the only way I could talk, since like the whole you don't even like value anything prescriptively, and I mean really I mean you at least didn't give anything you value prescriptively. The social contract thing, that's a matter of empiricism, which again we have to show some type of data.
I'm all empiricism. Yeah, it's pretty. I'm a fucking like Dragon Ball power scaler and shit. Yeah, it's all about empiricism over there. Yeah.
I'm not going to make claims to you that I don't have evidence for it. This fucking
right. Yeah.
So it's honestly, it's not like honestly, bro, it's not easy trying to convince someone to go vegan unless you appeal to some type of.
I actually think arguing as a vegan is uphill. I actually think it's the uphill position, which is kind of weird.
I would agree, honestly. I think it was definitely a harder position. I do think that a lot of people, like, because here's the thing.
It's only uphill if both people know what they're talking about, at least.
Yeah. Trust me, I've talked to a lot of people who I just use the principle of explosion in their own moral system, and then they're like, ah, shit.
Yeah, they just give up. Yeah, exactly. But
so, because like for example, like my cousin, right? He believes in human rights. So I asked him, okay, so why not animals? And we go through traits and switch and shit. And he eventually goes to the point where like, damn, like maybe I feel bad because like I don't have a justified reason in creating demand for killing animals, right? Okay. So if it depends on the axioms of the person, your axioms. Number one, they went from social contract to what you felt, and then you didn't give me a reason. So I was like, "Fuck."
Yeah, the whole principle of explosion thing. I said this at the beginning, but that wasn't actually part of my argument. I was just asking what you actually thought about it. I even said it was separate from the debate. Yeah, so it's more of a failsafe in case I take an L. But
so the principle of explosion, to me, honestly, like again, the proof through contradiction is not proof in the way that you're proving something to be objectively true or false, right? It's really just a proof that your mole system is I guess to put in English terms retarded as fuck. Like it's just like you either
you may be flimsy, or fickle.
Well, the fact is it'd be kind of stupid to have a principal position but then not value consistency. Because it just turns into like a non-principal position,
right? Yeah, and that's why I just played. Yeah, that's why I was just like, sure, like I'll just throw you a bone and we'll just argue like the contract or something. Because the reason I do that is because I find it the most like objective way to debate it. Right? It's just like it seems like the most. Every other way just seems really subjective. Like I don't know how to explain. What's a trait people name like? Intelligence or something like something like that. That just seems really subjective to me. So it's just like I find a social contract which we can actually describe. We can find papers on or something. That's the most objective like way to debate veganism, at least for me. That's why I at least brought it out. So yeah, and it was like a mock debate too. That's why I was like, all right, cool. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of social contract, right? Because it's actually interesting. I've heard a descriptive social contract argument, and I've heard a prescriptive social contract argument. The one in terms of like I value what society values is like the one you're giving. So then I'll ask you like, well, society values this using the data. You should value it, right? Some people actually like I've heard an argument from a guy that's a descriptive argument that instead of saying is and ought, in terms like he'll talk about if and then. So he'll say that social contracts form for humans out of self-interest, and they'll form these voluntary agreements and create social contracts, right? So then he won't even say he's like I don't make moral judgments. I just say what the rational extension of like something is. So like for example, humans value right to property, right? So then he'll say if someone can't value that right, then they're out the social contract. They don't get considered in it. And it's interesting because he said from that veganism would be irrational, right? And so he would say that a lot of animals would be irrational to be adopted in the social contract. I argued with him and got him to concede on like certain higher functioning animals like dolphins or fucking.
I think the lab meat argument would kind of counter that too, right? Like you would just say like I'm assuming that we're kind of like just talking at this point, but like you could just say like the lab grown argument kind of destroys that because it would be in their self-interest to kind of economically improve themselves or something, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what I kind of brought up in a way. I didn't say exactly that, but I said something along the lines of if society develops to where they want to involve animals, like he would be like, yeah, well that would make sense. I just feel like it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people being honest though, like from how they feel. And again, I'm not saying this in terms of right or wrong, but I feel like a lot of people how they feel are really vegan, but just have these axioms that they just can't do in terms of like taste or like something along the lines. It's hard. I'm not gonna lie, dude. It's hard. Like it's hard for me to go vegan too, bro. I grew up in Georgia, bro, eating fucking chicken all the time. It's fucking hard.
Yeah, and we kind of live in like a really depressed culture, which is weird because like everyone's like has like these emotional things going on. A lot of people are bored and shit too. Yeah, and it's just like when people like kind of stop caring about themselves, it's really hard to start caring about like activism or like society or normal shit. So it's like, yeah, that's actually a problem I face personally. But,
personally, it's I think it's even like a lot of times it's kind of deeper than that. Like if you really think about like it's like not only depressed but also depressed of the future. Like as I continue to play, it's like it's not going to get better,
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. And for some people, like oh, I have to worry about like how I'm gonna be vegan or something. It seems like an extra burden for some people, and I can understand like some people just don't want an extra task on their shoulders because they already have enough tasks to deal with as it is, and some people are already scared of life as just normally, and that's another
That's
thing.
fair.
Yeah.
I don't know if you thought I was one of those like militant vegans, but like I'm definitely
No.
like
No, I only wanted to debate you because like for one, you were poking me. You were like, "Who are you?" Blah blah blah. So like, all right, I'll show you who I am. And then
special guy.
yeah. And then two, ask yourself, put me on like the adept skill tier level. So I'm like, okay, so let's. I started from the bottom. I'm like, okay, I'll debate. Whoever like normal I could find. Jose and this guy named, I think his name was Rob, were like the novices, like apprentices that I found that would debate me, and then you were the first adept person that would debate me. So I was just that's mainly what I was poking at.
To be fair, I don't consider talking to you a debate, and I don't debate people.
That's fine.
Usually,
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk because I'm a fan of your channel.
Yeah, and like I said, I was mainly just poking, just seeing what was going on with you.
I hope I lived up to your expectations of actually being.
Well, the Naruto debate was bad, but the veganism one was much better than I thought it would be. So that was good.